won't take the whole 5 minutes to start up. That's just my normal counter, so I'll get to it right away as soon as we're up on all the
Got it.
Helmet hair shaking on the tarmac.
It's my new single, by the way. Wrote it for Artemis.
I like it.
You look up, but your sky is crowded.
Wait for the room to start populating after the step heads roll in, and then we'll start in about 1 minute.
Sounds good.
Glowing in the blue light. Every street buzzing, sharp and loud. I float in the gravity of old fights. You laugh like it's just another cloud. From up there, you're a blue marble, bruised paper thin halo hanging against.
There we go. There's Instagram up and live, Substacks up. As soon as all these stations populate. Okay, Instagram's up, Substack up, YouTube. The 3 people on Rumble that hate watch the show are in. Excellent. That's right. I go where the audience is. All right. Now, all right, everybody, we're going to jump straight in and get a head start on everything because we got a special guest right now. Hi, chat room. Welcome. Hit the like, share the show before we get started. Our friend of the show and friend of America, Harry Dunn, who's running for the Maryland District 05, if I'm not mistaken, is joining us this fine morning. Good to see you. I put that in your title, just, Harry Dunn for MD05, and, so we're clear about the mission here. Thank you for your service, and thank you for stepping up. I think there are 2 crucial aspects of this that, not only as a Capitol police officer, and everybody, and certainly in my live stream knows your experience on Jan 6 and your stepping up to the plate after that fact, but then continuing on in public life to be a public servant in another form is a great thing, and appreciate you doing it. Let's start off with how the campaign is going, what your feelings are about it now, where you are, what you need, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. No, thank you for that, and I appreciate the words about my public service and being a public servant. But look, I think we're at a place right now where we need everybody to do something. And besides sitting behind a keyboard, being upset and just rage tweeting, and so I think we need to find. But let's be clear: there is room for rage tweeting because it's necessary.
Sure.
And you know what? Sometimes we need to scream into a void especially because of everything that's happening right now. But I just feel like we want to do something that's tangible and actually try to make a difference. No, this is my 2nd time running for office. And the thing is, though, a loss didn't stop the desire and the need for fighters that we still continually need, especially in these times against this administration. So I just try to figure out, how can I be helpful? How can I be useful? How can I be the most impactful in this moment right now? So there was an opportunity where Steny Hoyer retired. He says he's retired at the end of this term, and created a vacancy, if you will, for an opportunity for me to enter Congress again. Enter Congress, not again, but run again.
Yes. Right.
And I was, as soon as he made that decision, I wasn't convinced or hadn't decided if I was going to run or not. I didn't know. I'm not a politician. Like, a lot of times when politicians see an opportunity, they're like, I'm in. Well, no, I had to sit on it for a while. I had to think about it. And the deciding factor was when I watched on a Saturday morning in February, Alex Preddy get murdered. And after watching that horrible footage, which so many people did, that helped me make my decision I am absolutely doing this. And the election is June 23rd. So we are, rocking and rolling and getting closer to the finish line.
It's really exciting. And I always say when it comes to politics and how we talk about politics in our country is that there's a lot of griping because we can, that becomes kind of almost neutralizes itself. People gripe about politics like they gripe about the DMV, when quite frankly, the DMV works fairly well most of the time, considering the kind of issues they have to deal with all the time, and the fact that they're licensing every driver on the road kind of matters. It should be a little complicated, especially when you're out in traffic. And the same thing is true of politicians, that the process itself should be complicated. You should be sure you want to do it. It should take some work, right? To get through this, so that it's not a flippant choice. We see a lot of that happening when MAGA QAnon adjacent folks have found a bright red district and can just run, and they'll, as long as they say Trump enough times, at least in the last,
Yeah.
two previous elections, they'll get elected and stay elected. It's a fairly flippant choice, and they leave, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. They don't stick around. They come in either to enrich themselves or to flail around for a bit, but it's a public service job. It's work. It requires a commitment to, like, this idea that, eventually you're going to want to be on committees about issues you care about, whether it's law enforcement, national security is an obvious one, or maybe you just find that you have, a real understanding as you go along of tax policy and those kind of things. And those committee seats open up,
Yeah.
and then you get to 5X for your district, your impact not only on theirs, but the national conversation. So are there areas where, this is a job you're going to get if you're fortunate enough to win? And I certainly think you're a good man, so you deserve it. And I don't think any of us have any fear of you being in there and doing the right thing when you're in there. But as far as a trajectory, what are things that really, like Preddy, but like areas where you really care about, where you're like, this is going to be my primary focus? You're obviously going to have to respond to your constituents, and they may be varied in their what they need and all that, your district specifically. But where are some areas that you feel particularly moved by, or driven to make a change in?
Well, so the whole process, first of all, and I actually, so I'm in my car now, and I've just left an event with retired federal workers. I have another forum later with a targeted demographic, or a targeted county later on this evening.
Right.
And I say this a lot, that Congress has a lot of functions, but two main ones that stand out. And if they control the purse, that means they fund things. They determine where the money goes,
Mm-hmm.
and they're supposed to conduct and hold oversight and hold people accountable. So the
Mm-hmm.
two main things of my campaign are accountability and affordability. So, like everybody, a lot of
Right.
people want to move on from January 6th. A lot of people want to move on from Donald Trump. And you know what? I would love to. I would love to.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't believe we can move on until there has been accountability, because a lot of people are worried that, hey, things that are happening now can happen again. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of these things that Donald Trump is doing are illegal. So when they say, hey, there are no guardrails in place, or, there's a lot of other things going on, that can prohibit Donald Trump and the administration from, let's say, firing illegal workers or going to war without congressional approval. There are already laws and statutes and guidelines that prohibit that. However, what we're seeing from this administration is they're not following it. They don't give
Right.
a damn about it. They're using the Constitution as a suggestion manual rather than the actual law of the land. And a lot of people were worried about, Donald Trump stopping midterms. A lot of people expressed concerns. We're not going to have midterm. Donald Trump's going to halt them. Well, I was never worried about that, because states control the elections.
Mm-hmm.
And what did the Supreme Court just say last week with the gutting of the Civil Rights Act? With the
Right.
voters, what did they just
Mm-hmm.
say? Louisiana just suspended their elections. Alabama doing the same thing. Donald Trump put out a truth social on Sunday and encouraged all Republican governors in red states to do the same thing. So, yes, we are at a fight right now where it's not just about policy, and it's not just about suggesting law and stuff like that. We
Right.
literally are in a fight for our existence, or our democracy, and for the life on America as we have known it. And I think that's one of the main things that I'm focused on. Now, obviously, yes, January 6th is what brought me to this forefront right now. But I've been a
Right.
public servant. I was a Capitol Police officer for almost 16 years before I left the department. So I know what it's like to serve the people and not be self-serving like so many elected officials we know that they are. So I think that we need to focus on one, holding Donald Trump and this administration accountable for all the illegal acts that they are doing. I believe that when Donald Trump leaves office, it's going to be anybody that's not pardoned that needs to be held accountable, like period. And if there are
Right.
ways to go after the people that are pardoned, we need to make sure they're held accountable too. And resigning and quitting, whether it be Pam Bondi or Christy Nome, is not enough because they have and they are committing illegal acts. And Congress is responsible for having oversight in regard to that. And we are not seeing that. Congress is supposed to be funding programs that actually further and better the American people. Donald Trump said during when he was campaigning that he wants to deport the worst of the worst people, the criminals, the rapists, the murderers, the drug dealers. And you know what? I don't think that's a bad idea.
Right.
Criminals, rapists, murderers, we don't want them here. Get out. I'm
Mm,
all for it. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing
mm-mm.
millions and millions and billions of dollars pumped into ICE to deport grandmothers, laborers, hotel workers, farmers, construction workers. They're not deporting the worst of the worst. They're deporting the best of the best. And that's what this
Mhm.
administration is about. And we need to make sure that the funding that is going to ICE right now is going to actual programs that will help the American people.
That's right. So, real quick, the website is harrydunformd.com. That's Maryland. No, we're not sending him to medical school, but if that's what it takes, that's what we'll do. harrydunformd.com. You can support through, you can donate that way. You can also look at his policy initiatives, see all of his socials. harrydunformd.com. Just go straight there. I put the link in the chat so it's available to everybody in there. And thanks to Mark P. and Can't Stop Lying and Andrea for spreading it around during that. So completely agree about this isn't about him deporting the worst of the worst, because I have one issue that's been kind of bugging me in the criticism of the Biden administration, especially from this administration, which is this idea that 25 million to 30. Yeah, 25 million to 35 million people came across the border and entered the country, and they're all, rapists and murderers and killers and stuff, which is garbage. Anyways, but that number is based on the recidivism number, which was 5x or even in some cases 10x, where people would, because of Title 42, would come across, get kicked out, come back across, because it doesn't show up on your record the way Title 8 does. Title 8, you come across, you get busted, goes on your record, and you can't become a citizen, and you have to pay a fine, and you get sent back, and all that kind of stuff that really complicates things. What everybody here is that all the workers are hiding from is Title 8. Title 42 is when you've got a disease or something, and nobody's accepted, so everybody just goes out, and it doesn't go on your permanent record. Maybe you didn't know. And so we punted a bunch of people, most of the time, the same people over and over again. So there's by no means 25 to 35 million new undocumented immigrants in the country. They just don't exist. They're not here. We got about 11 million. That's a static number. And Donald Trump, specifically to what you said was, about kicking out the, people that work on farms or work in, custodial service or work in hotels and stuff, has made special carve-outs for himself and his big agribusiness guys that they're all going to, they're on the honor system now or some nonsense. I mean, none of it's enforceable except for Congress just allows it to go on. And even MAGA's mad about that in particular because they're not seeing these deportation numbers that Donald Trump promised. So he's got to replace the volume with cruelty, that they've got to see.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They conflate those numbers so much, and that's the thing. They over exaggerate all these numbers. And I'll give you a specific example. One we talked about this morning was Doge. And I'm not trying to jump around subjects real quick, but I think it's important to talk about how this administration always does. And let's talk about Doge. Doge came in there, and their objective was to find and eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. And a lot of and listen, let's talk about MAGA. We agree. You know what? People say, Democrats are soft on crime and soft on. No, we're not. If they're criminals, then hold them accountable. If they are rapists, murderers, and drug dealers, get them the hell out. We agree. On the record, full stop.
Yep.
If there's waste, fraud, and abuse going on with government spending, let's stop it. Absolutely. Full stop. However, Doge talked about all this money and the money that they found. It costs more than to taxpayers to fund Doge to exist than the total amount of money, waste, fraud, and abuse that they actually found. So the
Right.
problem is they're conflating these numbers and saying that, oh, it's so much going on, when actually the reality is it's not.
Well, and they also, I personally think that this mythology about this quote unquote deep state, which is what Republicans complain about all the time,
Oh,
what they really mean, what they really are talking about are people like inspectors general and the whistleblower system and Congress, the committees that exist there, both in the House and the Senate, that check the numbers and refer to, all the stat, the stats they get from the different departments. They want to shut all that down so they can hide, their basic spending spree. Donald Trump raised the debt ceiling $5 trillion
yeah,
in,
yeah,
in the big BS bill so that he would just have cover for all this spending. They could go on a spending spree and never have to bring it up again every year like Democrats do. So the return, I think maybe to your point, the return to we need to check the numbers here. We need to, we need
yeah,
to do what Doge said it was going to do. Fits that accountability and affordability idea that you have, because we can't afford the damage that
yeah.
Doge did to programs that actually work and benefit people. The other thing is that Doge, part of me is like, whether it was a success or a failure is immaterial to the reality, because it seems like Doge was just Elon Musk's way of planting people
Oh, it was a
in all the
failure. It was a
cabinets.
failure.
Well, yeah.
It was a
Well,
failure. I'll say it. I'll say it for you. Shit.
yeah. Well, exactly. But above and beyond that, it was a strategy by Elon Musk to basically seed his own operatives into all these
Yep,
cabinet sectors where they now can report back to him. And Trump's not going to mention or bust those people
yep,
because he'd have to admit his own failure and that he allowed effectively corporate spies inside every aspect of his of his administration. And so one of the accountability things that's going to have to be there is these exit interviews with these Doge guys that we've seen, where they were just cutting stuff because it involved women or people of color or helping
yep.
immigrants or just historical stuff. That's the stuff that makes a lot of noise, but in reality, we have no idea what access to personal information, personal financial information, and health information that they do have now, that they are,
Yep.
funneling to Elon Musk and others. And that's going to take some real investigations by Democrats after they get in power. Republicans are
In
never going to
Congress,
do it.
yeah, they're never going to do it, and that's another good point. Doge, they had access to all of our they wanted access to voter rolls, social security
Mhm.
numbers, to all this private information, and for what? These are and these are 18 and 19-year-old kids. Like, I'm not saying that
Right.
young people aren't capable of doing jobs, but these are just kids that Elon Musk. Oh, these are tech buddies of mine. They're good and they're competent at this, and that's problematic. So and let's talk about all the funding and everything like that, and all the that you said Trump raised the deficit ceiling. Yes, he
Mm.
absolutely did. And they're talking about being fiscally responsive, which
Right.
Republicans used to be able to claim that was their claim. That's what they wanted, fiscal responsibility, instead of spending so much money. I mean, we're upwards of spending millions and millions, hell, billions of dollars a day on this one illegal war that Donald Trump says he's admitted now he doesn't need congressional approval for. But so the guardrails are already just there. They exist, but he's just not following them. So there's always money for that. There's always money for ICE. There's always money for CBP. But hey, can we have money to take care of our veterans? Oh, it costs too much. Can we have money
Yeah.
to pay for our seniors, our Medicare, our Social Security? Can we? Oh, it costs too much. That costs too much. Hey, what about healthcare? And you know what? Let's go back talking about healthcare. When the Obamacare subsidies were up and the government was shut down because the Democrats were holding firm and what at one moment about that, which I disagree that
Hmm.
they should have stayed longer with that, because what they asked for in their return to open the government was a vote by Republicans to vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. We're still
Hmm.
waiting on that vote. So I mean, taking them at their word or trusting them, it's kind of stupid to trust them. They already showed us who they are. But with regards to the ACA subsidies, Affordable Care Act subsidies, Obamacare subsidies, the top 10 states that did see and have seen the biggest increases in their
Uninsured rates.
healthcare premiums going up are all Republican states,
Hmm.
all red states. And you know who was fighting to keep those subsidies low? Was Democrats fighting. They weren't even their constituents. Now, listen, now let's be clear. Every single state, no matter where you are going to feel the effects of it. But the top 10 states were all red states.
Right.
But not
Yeah.
one Republican was fighting for that.
Yes, the just so we're clear, under Biden, the fiscal deficit, the congressional deficit was if my numbers are correct, $1.8 trillion. That was the deficit, 1.8 trillion. Going into 2025, which is the budget from 2024. Again, 2023 is the fiscal layout from the year before. So the deficit from 2024 is laid in place in 2023. The 2024 one laid in place in 2025. In 2025, it was 1.78 because it was coming down during the Biden administration. It was going down every year for every budget that they laid out. As soon as the big BS bill passed in 2025, the projected budget deficit for this year is $1.9 trillion. That's just the yearly expenditure. We are over, right? We were shaving off a couple of $100 billion a year ever since the peak after COVID, which was, again, us fiscally trying to plug a $20 trillion hole with $6 trillion of rescue package stuff.
Yeah.
It was going down, and it's going right back up. The extra $200 billion, and that doesn't even include the supplement that they are seeking for the extra $200 billion for this, the $1.5 trillion military budget that they're going to put forward. So the idea of fiscal conservatism
it's
on the
Trump's
right.
ballroom, too. Let's not forget,
Because we're paying for that now.
Republicans put that in the bill to his ballroom, so...
Right, but that was going to be paid for with rich donors who just love our country, along with his Arc to Trump that he's going to put in front of Arlington Cemetery to as a monument to his 5 draft dodging deferments. The idea that they are fiscally conservative is beyond a farce now. Like it's cartoonish. Like I don't know how any of them argue this, except maybe there's some leftover, we're going to grow our way out of it fiction, right? Which is what that $18 trillion story that Trump is telling. So the question I have in our last 6 minutes together, and I know you got to go, and I really appreciate you stopping by today, and good luck on the rest of your stuff today, is this, when you're out there talking the issues, or you're going to be in debates, let's say, you go through the primary, you're debating whether there's a Republican running in the district or not, and that kind of stuff. All of their normal defenses for MAGA, for Trump, for why they elected him in the first place. No new wars, no regime change wars, the peace president, he's going to be better for the budget deficit, prices and affordability, all that stuff, is now just, it's patently obvious it's a farce.
It's a pipe dream.
Yeah. But or a flim-flam salesman. I really feel like at this point, MAGA's really confronting that they got P.T. Barnum in this situation. There's a maggot born every minute on the Trump side. They just happen to think these people are going to keep getting suckered and never have a care in the world about it. They're just going to always assume Trump, has some sort of religious control over their head or something. And so they're going to just allow for this. So how do you, it's clear that you and I both agree, I think certainly, that there are bridges. There are no partisan issues. They're just partisan solutions. And in some cases, there aren't a partisan solution. There's only one way to solve a problem. If you have a criminal, you put him in jail. If he's a danger to the public, you get him off the street. That's it. How long and all that kind of stuff is worked out locally by and large. But in general, that's a thing we can both agree on. And so obviously you're going to have to reach across the aisle to, right-leaning independents, people in the district that may have, vacillated in elections. So, what's your message to them, to go, I'm not your enemy and I'm here to help you as well?
Well, first of all, they have to see Trump as an enemy. And you know what? And I'm sorry if there are people out there that I would have to vote, I would be looking for their vote that see Donald Trump as anything but a criminal. I won't budge on that. He is a criminal. And like I say, we can't agree. I don't think we can. I'm not talking about you and I, but we've already seen admitting the truth about January 6th. Like we
Right.
can't even he pardoned and
Oh yeah.
forgave all the people responsible for it. So we want to talk about criminals and holding people accountable. If we can't even agree on that, then we're definitely not going to. I'm not even going to attempt to find. And
Sure.
maybe that's the non-politician in me. I don't want to find
Right.
room to work together with somebody who can't acknowledge that January 6th was a criminally bad day and Donald Trump was the ringleader for it. Period. There is no,
Right.
but when it comes down to everything, when you talk about affordability, look, I don't care who you are. If you go down the street, everybody at that gas pump right now is saying, "Oh my God, this costs so much," and
Hmm.
the pump don't care if you're Republican or a Democrat. The
Right.
grocery store don't care if you're Republican. Everything is expensive now,
That's
and we
right.
all can agree on that.
Hmm.
Healthcare is unaccessible and too expensive, and we all can agree on that right now. We don't need to be out there spending millions and billions of dollars on wars in other countries. Hell, I think we can agree on that because MAGA, Donald Trump ran on the premise of no new wars.
Right. Right.
Hey, if you elect Kamala Harris, we're going to be in never-ending wars. Dude, you're trying to take us
Right.
in a new conflict with that. Like, is Greenland next? Is what about Cuba?
Cuba
Like
is
all these
right.
other Cuba. That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
it's so many things. So when you talk, listen, there are some things that we can agree on, and maybe not how to get there. But if we can't acknowledge that the person in the White House in this administration is a criminal entity, and he's only doing stuff for self-interest. What about the Epstein files? We're still waiting on that. We've been
Yep.
screaming. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican on it.
Right.
They need to be held accountable, and the victims deserve justice. Period. We need to focus on the things that we can. And like I said, and then we can actually start voting on issues instead of personality types.
Hmm. That's great. That's I can tell by the chat room that you're hitting the nerve exactly where I thought you would, and that's really great. There is and again, when it comes to affordability, when it comes to the Epstein files, when it comes to wars, there is an amazingly bipartisan unity on three issues at once. This is unique in
Yeah.
in a voting situation, and ironically. I would even agree to some degree on immigration. Donald Trump is failing to do what he said on immigration. Is the right's take on it. On our side of the aisle, it's that he is committing crimes and he's not actually solving the real problem at all, and he's just being cruel to show off to his MAGA base, like some sort of
Yeah.
UFC president. But there is agreement
Yeah.
that it's not working. He's not fulfilling his promise. So MAGA's even drifted on that. It's one of his worst issues, even though he ran on it more than anything else. So I think you've got a unique opportunity where there are three issues, affordability, no new wars, and healthcare, that there's broad agreement across the electorate that favors Democrats, especially in this situation, because not only are Republicans not not only are they making it worse currently, they don't even have an attempted plan to make it better. They're just like, it will happen through magical trickle down
Yeah.
economics or something,
I
right?
will say this real quick. I will say this real quick. And yes, when you said it favors Democrats, I wanted to do more than just favor Democrats because I think no matter what it was, it would favor the party that's not in control right now. And we need to make it clear that it's not just about picking the worst or the lesser of two evils. We actually
Agreed.
have to understand that there's actually one party out there that cares about other people, and there's another party out there that cares about enriching billionaires, millionaires, and forgets about the working class, and they use them
Right.
as hashtag and slogans instead of actually letting their legislation work for them. So let's
Yep.
keep that in mind first and foremost. But I don't think that it's just about, hey, vote for Democrats because Republicans are messing this up. I think vote for Democrats, the right Democrats, because there's
Yeah.
some Democrats out there that you be like, wait a minute, what are you doing? We're not in lockstep.
Mhm.
What
Right.
the hell is this going on? So let's make sure that and that's why primaries are so important.
Yep.
When I'm running in June 23rd. But we need to make sure that we make it clear that one party is trying to work for the people, and another party is working for themselves and the president.
Right. And his donors and friends, his co-conspirators and other stuff, and of course his foreign buddies that do not have the average, American's best interest at heart. Harry Dunn running, he's got a primary coming up on June 26th, did you say? Is that when it is? Yeah.
23rd.
Oh, sorry,
23rd.
23rd. Beg your pardon. June 23rd, and so you got a race ahead of you. You're going to be, like shaking hands and kissing babies and giving
Yeah.
speeches and that kind of stuff. Good luck with all that stuff. Really appreciate you. If you're welcome back on anytime. And I want to remind everybody the website is harrydunn4md.com. Check
Thank
it
you.
out and support it and appreciate it, brother. And again, I know you hear this a bunch, but thanks again for your work on and around January 6th and your work as a police officer in general. It is sometimes, there's this myth that it's a thankless job on our side of the aisle, and it should not be. So I want you to know, just as a human being, I appreciate the weight you took on just doing that job in the first place. And your willingness to sort of be America's Secret Service detail, and that you stand between us and the awful, and that matters. That really does matter. So thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for the kind words in the comments. I appreciate y'all. Take care.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see you again real soon. Ladies and gentlemen, there he goes. Harry Dunn for MD.com. Please check it out. And thanks again for coming on, Harry. Greatly appreciate that. Phil will be joining us, I think, in the next hour from Ukraine. But for the next half hour, it's just the two of us. So much to cover, obviously. I think the primary thing, and I have to show you this. So, it's midweek market manipulation day, and Trump released a statement this morning. I opened it. Where is it? This nonsense. Yeah, I'll show you this idiocy. Yeah. Is that okay, hold on. Nope. Okay, this is even older. So this morning, there was a statement from Trump that I'll open this back up again. Where are you silly page? I have everything up all at once. Essentially, Trump, the market responded to Trump's dipshittery yesterday and said that it's that we're in great talks with the folks, whatever, that the Iranians, whoever they are, one of the four groups of leaders he doesn't even know are alive, and so they're in great agreement. Four of them. One of the four groups is talking to them and therefore is in agreement about how this is going to go. And then this morning, the number of times he said agree as a question is sort of the most idiotic part of it. Yeah, okay, that's what I was looking for, was the Safari window. That's why. There you go. Yeah, here it is. This is just, so it's how dumb? How dumb? This dumb. Where is it? Where's my little comms window for this guy? Yeah, here you go. This is his truth sinkhole post this morning, and the idea, I don't get it. I honestly don't have any idea how the market responds to any of this garbage like it's real. This, just for the record, in case anybody's wondering, this is some bullshit. This is not a thing. And I'll show you how it's not a thing. Just in the Iranian response to it. All right, let's just check out the language in this typical market manipulation post from Donald Trump, which, Eric and Don Jr. are day trading on, clearly. Assuming Iran agrees, by the way, the word agrees happens, I think, three times in this. All right. Assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to. For fuck's sake. There is.
Oh, hello there.
This is so bad. This is. God. Assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to.
Oh, hello there.
Which is perhaps a big assumption. The already legendary epic fury will be at an end, which technically, according to him, it already is because he wrote a letter to Congress saying it was over days ago. So it's not. So he was lying to Congress to what? It's so stupid. Anyways, it's so with the I can't with the it's just it's the stop stupid. All right, so we'll be at an end, and the highly effective blockade will allow the Hormuz Strait to be open to all, including Iran. So we're gonna have an open blockade. What does that even mean? How is the like?
I never thought anybody could forget so much so fast without a severe blow to the head.
Who in the living? What the? How here we? This is I can't even. How the hell? The moron you know. The blockade will make it open. So it'll be an open. I don't even know. I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. It's an open blockade. All right, sure. Well, you know, this is the kind of language you get from a guy who doesn't understand sexual consent at all. You know what I mean? She's not saying no. It's an open blockade. Jesus Christ. All right. If they don't agree, assuming they agree to what's been agreed to, if they don't agree to what we assume they've agreed to when they agreed that we assume they would agree, as my dad would say, so sorry if I woke your cat. If they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will be, sadly, at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. I'm not reading this stupid fucking complaint box thing that he tacks on. If they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will be, sadly, at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. So again, what are you going to be bombing? What are you talking about? I think that's right, Stagger. Just going for mass confusion. Just scramble the markets and buy what goes down. Trump's medical physical test has been delayed. Yes, this is true. Granted, he may have blacked out at 3 different times during the typing of this Truth Sinkhole post. Or they may be translating what he was kind of saying in a stupor while he was on Ambien, while they're trying to get him to get normal sleep. And this is all that he farted out. You know, that they're just sitting there going, he said agree again. That's, I think, okay, that was another agree. Also agreed. Embrace the mystery. That's right. That's what we're all trying to do. Chat room. Okay, so genuinely, this day before yesterday, project/Operation Freedom, which is not either. It's not a project nor an operation. Is going to open up the strait for people, and we're going to guide those boats through. And then it turns out we're not guiding those boats through. We're going to have other people. We're talking to insurance companies and just into letting. Project Freedom is us manipulating the actuarial tables by bribing insurance companies with U.S. taxpayer dollars to pay for ships that aren't ours and aren't delivering oil to us, that might get blown up by a sea mine that we don't know is there or might be there. Like, it's... Okay, anyways, that lasted all of 12 hours. And then he goes, actually, we're not doing the, we're not going to do the project/Operation Freedom. After all, that's not happening. So we're going to put that on pause because we're this close to a deal. Right? We're so close to a deal. That's the market manipulation thing. We're actually going to call off we're not going to let ships through. We're just going to go back to where things sucked, somehow that had an impact on oil futures. Because I mean, these assholes. This has got to be bots. This has got to be what happens when most of the trading is done by software instead of human beings, and the software goes, "Hey, if it ends, the price is going to go down, so short it." And if there's any expression of continued violence, the price is going to go up. So buy it quickly before it goes up. Because only a machine that's been told to just read what normalcy used to be would make these kind of fucking decisions. This is like, these are like the changes we're seeing in the market. I'm just going to call it. The changes in the market that we're seeing right now are like hedge funds and investor groups and individuals across the globe that are using, like open claw trading bots trained on the history of the market, which is by and large with some minor, peaks and valleys over the years based on actuarial realities, the price of and availability of fuel, supply and demand, all that kind of stuff. And so it's acting like Trump really means what he says. It's just fucking goofy. So, all right. So, this was apparently, here's Fox News. I don't know. This seems like a manipulation, but we'll see what they have to say. This is Fox News's, I don't even know if it qualifies as a take anymore. Like, what do they know? Here you go. This is a Fox News alert. Let's see what they have to say.
An update from the Middle East this morning. CENTCOM says the U.S. blockade of Iran has now redirected 52 commercial vessels, ordering them to turn around or return to port. Meanwhile, Axios reports the White House believes it is closing in on a deal that would end the war. It comes as President Trump this morning told
do they? Sorry. Why the fuck would anybody take that seriously? How many? Trump said it's actually over. As the president of the United States, who has the ability to declare it over. He said it's over like 9 times before it was. It's so stupid.
Conflict has, quote, a very good chance of ending.
Okay, that's it. They just cut the clip there. Okay. It has a very good chance of ending. What do you mean? Eventually, through universal entropy? Eventually, the sun will go out, and clearly the Iran-U.S. conflict won't go past that date. So it's got a very good chance of ending, somewhere around the time all things end. Jesus Christ. Do the Iranian people know about this? No, they don't. The internet's basically shut down. Ugh. This is, yeah, everybody is turd polishing about this. Let's see. Do I okay? Iran is generally. My doctor told me, I'm glad you Iranians stood up to corrupt U.S. administration. Trump is nothing but a bully and a coward. All right. So you can go for preparation for previously announced UK Hormuz first branch to men. Okay. Again, none of this is confirmed or anything. Iran just sent a warning to all ships. Cross the Strait of Hormuz without our permission and you will be targeted. That was a minute ago. That sounds like they're ready to make a deal, right? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. Like and subscribe, will you? Hit the like, share the show, etc., etc., etc. Let's see. Yeah, crude oil took a dump on Trump's original thing, and now it's losing most of that. And again, this is largely manipulative. And have reached. Okay, this is okay. Honestly, there's just a bunch of puffery online. Nobody knows because what's being said about it has zero meaning. Let's see. Conflict capitals. Here's what nobody's covering. Iran is demanding Bitcoin payments for every tanker passing through Hormuz. $1 a barrel, 20 million barrels used to flow through there daily. The war just went crypto, so everybody's thinking this will help crypto, which it won't as long as the Trump boys are involved in it. And then, of course, Bitcoin goes down because everybody jumps in there. Okay, here's the other one. This is when is this one? This was yesterday. Trump is heavily relying on Pakistan's army chief to extract a surrender from Iran, and it hasn't worked. This is the other statement. This is one he put out when he pulled back Project/Operation Freedom yesterday, based on the request of Pakistan and other countries. What about America first, huh? The tremendous military success that we've had during the campaign against the country of Iran, and just based on that tremendous success, the fact that that great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with the representatives of Iran. This is just a lie. That's not a thing. They have not made great progress at all towards a draft document, much less a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran. Literally, the last one they passed back and forth said, we'll talk about nukes later. The Iranians will we'll work out the open up the strait and unfreeze our money and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll talk about whether or not we'll give up our nuclear aspirations or the nuclear dust, as Trump calls it. We'll talk about that later. Does anyone think there is any world where Donald Trump says to the world, I got a deal, and then they read it and it says, we've released all the, we've released all the money we were holding for them. They've now can ship to China and we've lifted all the sanctions and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about their nuclear program later. We'll work out whether we bring it out or there's a trust me bro situation. Does anybody think, never mind that it'll be bullshit and nobody in the world of sparklers and the people here at the greatest live stream in the history of live streams, and none of us are buying it. But do you think there are maggots that will actually buy this, except the ones that are paid to do it on X? Right. Well, somebody just put in there, Iran wants Lebanon to stop. Let's deal with some of the chat room. You guys, let's address some of those things, because Iran wants Lebanon to stop. Okay, the war between Israel isn't between Israel and the Lebanese government. It's between Hezbollah and Israel. Lebanon doesn't have a policy that Israel has to get wiped off the map, that they don't really exist, that their borders don't mean shit, blah, blah. That's Hezbollah. But Hezbollah owns half of, a little over a third, controls a little over a third, especially the border region with Israel, of Lebanon. And eventually, Lebanon, I would presume, would rather have that back. In the same way that the North would rather it be that the South didn't run a slavery system out of the bottom end of our country, and all the while that went on, the Spanish and the English, who were eliminating the slave trade, would continue to fire on all of our states as if we're all in on it. Right? You see how that analogy would have sucked? All right. Same thing. These are a couple, about 100 years apart, but if you smacked them together and they were all happening at once, that's my point. So, Israel has a problem with Hezbollah, not with Lebanon per se. And Lebanon has a Hezbollah problem because they're threaded through their country. And so they burrow in, kind of like the Russian Wagner group in Africa, just weaseling their way into everything. So if you want to get them out, it requires, surgery that's rather ugly, is the idea, unless their immune system rejects it, using the medical attachment. But the point is that there can't be a cessation of hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel, period. They just can't. Both sides want the elimination of the other. And Lebanon has no say over what Hezbollah does. So the idea that Trump got the Israel and Lebanon together is fucking meaningless. What difference does it make? The Lebanese don't have a say over what Hezbollah does. The Israelis wouldn't go, oh, we talked to the Lebanese, that means the Hezbollah is going to behave. It's fucking dumb. It's dumb. And so the idea that, like, Iran will be satisfied because Trump it's like the Abraham Accords. What are the Abraham Accords? It's Israel interacting with countries that weren't attacking it. It was a business deal. What the fuck are you talking about? The Abraham Accords weren't a peace deal, and they certainly weren't a security pact like NATO. It was just Trump, and it wasn't even like the leadership or the people of those countries necessarily. It was the oligarchy of both countries going, I don't really give a shit about all this religious blah, blah, blah that I sell to these dickheads. I want to make money because I want a golf course in every country. And that's Trump's language. Israel is the aggressor. What's so hard to understand? It's not hard to understand. But again, they're not at war with Lebanon. They're at war with Hezbollah. And whether you like the fact that they're attacking Hezbollah or not, or whether you think they have the right to, is immaterial. Because Trump, let me give you a better analogy. Israel and Lebanon are at war. Let's just call it like that. Let's just say Israel and Lebanon are at war. So Donald Trump arranges a meeting to bring peace between the two parties, between Israel and Turkey. See what I'm saying? What the fuck would that have to do with a war between Israel and Lebanon? It's nonsense. Turkey and Israel can't declare an end to hostilities between them and a third party that they have no control over. It's meaningless. And so the idea that, like, Iran is waiting for Trump to figure out how to stop the, quote, Israel-Lebanon war, when it's really the Israel-Hezbollah war, and they hold, that section of the country, and Trump's idea was, I'll have them meet the people that aren't actually fighting. What the fuck is that? So, of course, it's not going to satisfy Iran that it's going to end anytime soon. And it certainly has zero meaning to the Israelis and the Lebanese in this situation. It's like dealing with the Houthis by having a meeting with the Yemeni government in the north of Yemen. These are not the warring parties. Yes, not unlike the Palestinians versus Hamas. Exactly. Hamas is like, if you don't have a buy-in from Hamas in the peace process, it doesn't fucking matter. And Israel's going to continue to bomb the Palestinians as if they're linked with Hamas until that separation happens. And so on and on and on and on we go. It's a fucking farce. And so there's two possibilities here. And I personally think that since the deal about Gaza specifically, that Donald Trump got, the Israelis and the Palestinians to sign off on, although who the fuck signed off on it on behalf of the Palestinians? The Egyptians. Again, what the fuck are we even talking about? The idea that people were like on fucking college campuses and marching down the street with fucking Free Palestine, and they're taking Trump's word for it, that there was a peace agreement signed that the Palestinians had no fucking part in. You know what the third party was in this situation? Negotiated allegedly by Trump and his folks? The Egyptians. The other group that runs the border of Gaza that keeps Palestinians in there. So either the people who were, quote, hashtag Free Palestine for the last couple of years when Democrats were running things and magically fucking evaporated once Trump came in and started his plans for Trump Plaza Gaza and started ethnically cleansing the area, and everybody just shut the fuck up. They just all fucking evaporated. There's only two ways that either they're dumb enough to think it's over and they believe Trump's peace deal actually worked and that there's not an ethnic cleansing going on there right now, which there is. But I guess with our complicit help, or there's this fund being sat on, this $6 billion fund that Jared Kushner gets to run until it's spent rebuilding Gaza, which would be fucking never. They get to just sit on that pot. There is literally no impetus for Kushner and his buddies to end the violence in Gaza, or to, to allow the Gazans to stay, because that money would start having to be paid out. And I guarantee they've leveraged it out the fucking wazoo. So, okay, again, Trump creates a peace deal over the Palestinian territory between Netanyahu and the Egyptians. And the only difference between the deal that Biden presented and the one that they allegedly got was Trump put in a "trust me, bro" clause for Israel, so they don't have to verify what they're doing. It'll just, you guys are going to do it, right? And then the rest of the rest of it's the same, except 10 more months of bombing directly. It's a farce. It's market manipulation. Is literally just to manipulate everything from oil and gas prices, get an artificial spike that is not warranted by the market out of the oil industry for all the players one last time before it starts cascading into a boutique fuel source, which is what's going to happen, because the demand shock that happened due to rising oil prices in the early 2000s, the Iraq and the Afghanistan wars, followed by COVID and the fucking financial crash. The idea that you'd have an electric car you could charge yourself with a battery system in your home that, and solar panels long term is cheaper and more reliable and more free than, as far as freedom goes, than having to go to a fucking gas station that can be manipulated like it's being manipulated right now. So, point being, this particular, and somebody was like, when other Muslim nations won't even take Palestinians. No, that's clear. That's just Trump's ignorance. Yeah, they won't. We're going to move them to someplace nice was one of Trump's sales pitches. Right? There are a bunch of countries that they're lining up to take these. They can't really live there. It's a fucking mess. We'll move them all down that way, right? We'll just put them in a couple of other countries. They're working with us. We're working with them. No, they're not. So this is all market manipulation by a bunch of crony capitalist dickheads who have never contributed to the overall value of anything on the planet. They've only operated by standing on top of limited resources because their parents did before them. Trump is a second-generation rich kid that fucked up his dad's real estate empire and turned it into a branding exercise. He's a minority owner in most of the big buildings that all of the big buildings he's done since the 90s. Anything that happened during the fucking Apprentice. He's not the seed money on any of these goddamn things. They're branded around him. And they're all business deals with sketchy LLCs and fucking cloak and dagger groups for Russian oligarchs to hide money in U.S. real estate. That's what they do. Look at the fucking Chicago Tower. Trump is a minor investor in it, and his name's on the fucking building. It's ridiculous. It's like the Hard Rock Cafe or Hard Rock Casino being a Mohegan Sun. The Hard Rock's investment is decals, nameplates, a sign outside, and a restaurant inside. The rest of it is all run by Mohegan Sun. But Mohegan Sun isn't as popular and Americana sounding, so a lot more people, across the Midwest or whatever will fly out and stay at the Hard Rock, but they won't stay at a Mohegan Sun. So that's why they do it. Nobody's going to stay at the fucking, Putin and Co. Tower in fucking Chicago. So they slap some gauche dickhead name on it, and that gives the illusion of luxury to other gauche dickheads, and they pay him a fee and give him a stake in the building that he didn't earn. Hey, Phil's with us. Good. Okay. We were worried we weren't going to be able to have him in here today. Hold on. Give me 1 second and I'll bring him in. So again, this illusion that we keep seeing about I'm going to go into here. I'm going to assign him to just one. There we go. One of the things we keep seeing with Trump and these guys is that it doesn't result in anything but a grift. Sorry. Whoops. Philip Ittner joining us, and I greatly appreciate him joining us this afternoon, this evening for him, because that's how clocks work. In the process of this, the maggots are all driving this storyline that, you know, Trump was America first. That's what he really cares about. He's America first. America first. When he absolutely is doing everything he said he wouldn't do. Phil's joining us right now. Hey, Phil. Glad you can see us. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I can hear you. You can hear me, yes?
Yep, sounds good. First of all, welcome. Good to see you. And how's things in Kyiv right now? What's on the front of your plate? And then that kind of stuff. And
Well,
then, yeah.
it's been better.
Right.
It's been better. I over the weekend had my 5th birthday in
Oh,
Ukraine
wow.
under war.
Well, I'd say happy birthday, but yeah. Right.
5 years of my life taken
Mm-hmm.
by this war. I'd much rather be with my loved ones and
Mm-hmm.
all the rest of it. But somebody's got to be here, and the press corps is doing a crap job. So,
Right.
and also, I feel obligated to do it for a variety of different reasons. But it sucks to mark an anniversary where you realize that five years of your life has been consumed by this war, and then I was retiring. I was getting out of the war business, as it were, and
unfortunately, the rest of the world isn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Russians decided that they had other plans, and you think back on your career of 30 years and covering wars, which is basically the amount of time that I spent in covering wars. When you think of all the birthdays and the holidays and major life events of the people that you love, and you miss them because you're in some godforsaken hellhole being shot at, and watching horrible, miserable things, which is actually another reason why I'm kind of struggling with my mental health right now, is because I just spent the afternoon doing an interview with somebody who is trying to speak out about an atrocity that's happening in occupied Ukraine, which it makes if what she is hearing, and this is an old friend of the show, Zarina Zabriskie, who lives in Kherson, and she is hearing stories from the other side of the river. Kherson is split in two because of the river. It's a oblast, but one side has the city, and one side has kind of the more, rural or suburban part of the oblast, which makes, of course, negotiations over it very difficult.
Right.
But we are slowly hearing stories coming out of the occupied part of Kherson, which, it makes Bucha look like, like a Boy Scout jamboree. There's satellite imagery, there's photography that has been sent out by those who have managed to escape, because obviously, you can't just get on the phone if you
Hmm.
have a phone in this part of the world and call your buddies in Ukraine or your family in Ukraine and say, their bodies stacked up like cordwood,
Hmm.
um, and they're being left to basically rot in the open air. I'm sorry to be so graphic about it, but I mean this is what we discussed, and it's happening, and we're not paying attention to it. Partly because, again, I mean, it is hard to get this information out, and
Hmm.
then it has to get traction within the media, and then hopefully um, the powers that be, whether it's the International Criminal Court or various UN bodies or EU bodies or whatever, somebody who actually can bring consequences to the people that are doing this.
Right.
But it needs to be brought to their attention. So just as and I've known Zarina for 30 years as a colleague and a friend, and she was spot on about the um, human safari that's going on
Hmm.
in Kherson, and now that's what it's called. I mean, she's the one. She's the one that interviewed somebody in Kherson who described it as a human safari. She then reported that, and it gained traction, and that's what it's called now, the human safari. So, Zarina is a dear friend, and she's eccentric
Hmm.
a little bit. Um, but then anybody who does this job is a little eccentric, and the things she was telling me about what she's hearing from survivors who've gotten out
Hmm.
is absolutely horrific. So that was my afternoon, and we recorded it, and we'll be putting it out. It'll be this week's episode of On the Edge. We will, come hell or high water, get it on the air, because we need to spread the word.
Hmm.
But the other thing that I'm afraid is kind of dragging me down is the fact that I learned this morning that a member, I won't say who, but a member of our team, um, in the On the Edge production, behind the scenes guys, has been mobilized.
Hmm.
So he will be going to the front lines by the end of the week. Well, no, he'll be going, more accurately, he'll be going to training
Hmm.
for a couple of months before he is sent to the front lines. And he's somebody we rely on to make the show happen. And so you're torn.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose him. But if everybody ignores their mobilization orders in Ukraine, then the Russians will win.
Right.
And so you're torn about that. But you also know that this is somebody who has a family.
Hmm.
He has children. He's got a wife that loves him, and he's being torn away from them to go because some asshole in the Kremlin decided that he wanted to recolonize a country. And
Right.
he's just one of hundreds of thousands of people, millions really, in this country who have had their lives absolutely shattered, torn
Right.
apart, ripped apart. Whether they're in occupied Ukraine and being shot execution style in public on the street, or whether or not they're being dragged away from their loved ones to go defend this country. And the fact that we can't get our shit together and back these people,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
it's not been a great week.
Yeah. Understood. I, there, the only upside, I think, to the Iranian debacle is that it has turned the the right wing players' vitriol away from Ukraine over the last little bit, because it was, every time Trump would talk about it, he would, chip away at Zelensky or chip away at our relationship. Some of his NATO talk has been really about Ukraine as because I guess Russia would rather him attack NATO than attack Ukraine because of it doesn't work. Like attacking Ukraine, it's completely obvious that this was a Russian war of aggression. They were not provoked or scared into it, no matter how much, Jimmy Dore in that crowd will say it. And so he's turned his attacks towards NATO with the idea that somehow this is going to soften NATO's resolve, and it doesn't seem to be. As a matter of fact, it seems to be hardening it. That this is another situation where if Trump supports it, it drives support away. So, obviously, I wish we were doing more, certainly, but there's less of a drive amongst, the general flow maggotry in Congress to actively try and shut stuff down.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
and I said at the beginning of the war, and I'll the full scale
right.
invasion in 22. And I'll say it again: there's only one way this war goes,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes with Russia not gaining an advantage.
Right.
I don't like using words like winning or losing or victory or defeat,
Mm-hmm.
but Russia will come out of this worse than it started, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. There's not a doubt in my mind.
Right.
And then on the flip side of things, Ukraine is, even if they lose, territory,
Mm-hmm.
even if they lose territory that is, would be incredibly helpful to their GDP. The industrialized East and the minerals and the oil under the Black Sea and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they lose all of that, they will be a sovereign country for the first time in over 500 years. They will have some form of democracy. They will, most importantly, be sovereign and able to decide their own future. And that was decided, 4 years ago when they pushed them away from Kiev, and when they
Mm-hmm.
repulsed them from Kherson and Kharkiv. And you know, it was obvious that that's the way that this was going to go. And the only question then is how many more Ukrainians have to die for that to happen, and how many years have to be lost. And I
Well,
think
the answer,
think if you were
the
think
the
if you
answer
were
from
a child,
right. The
if
answer
you were
from
a child,
Trumptown is as many as possible. And the idea was that, even from the Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of proportion, was that we should allow the Russians to punish the Ukrainians for not dying faster, which is essentially, like that, with that whole storyline of this war would be over if not for us. Well, like that. That's absurd. I mean, these are people who regretted, our support in Darfur or those kind of things. So it's a little stupid overall. But um, right now, Russia, with all, again, this mythology that it's the second biggest military in the world, even beyond China and all this stuff, that's all gone. The idea that they had a strategy in place that actually had some merit to it, that's all gone. This is simple meat wave bullshit from Russia that they've always cranked out. That their peace initiatives that
that
they put
there's
forward,
some sort of
yeah,
that there's some sort of that there's an inevitability
right,
to Russia, and that it's you don't, though. I mean, I hate repeating the words, but
hmm
the mentality of you don't hold the cards. It's not, and Zelensky's response, which gets drowned out in that event,
yeah,
is that he says, "I'm not playing cards."
yes,
And it's not about the cards that you have. It's about a country that is resolved to abandon its colonial ancestry and to
Hmm.
seek its own path and tell its own story. And look, I didn't agree with the Iraqi insurgency,
Hmm.
but I witnessed the Iraqi insurgency. I think the Iraqi insurgency was led by some very, very bad people who
Hmm.
actually did a lot of harm to Iraq. But I saw an insurgency, and I know the will that takes, and
Hmm.
you cannot bomb that out of a person. You can't bomb that
Right.
out of a people. And so, it's not there. The Moscow is not going to find success here.
Hmm.
So why is it that we in the West and the Europeans, admittedly, are of course, waking up to this, have
Right.
woken up to it.
Right.
But this concept of Russia is an inevitability, you don't hold the cards. It's going to happen whether you like it or not. So just give up. And that
It's not going to
displays
fly with
a
anybody. Yeah.
profound,
It's not.
well, no,
Right.
and it displays a profound lack of understanding of the people of this country, and actually also, I mean, if you really want to get into it, big pictures, what an insurgency is, what a rebellion is, what guerrilla warfare is about. If you are willing to fight and abandon everything that you have
Hmm.
so that you can defeat an enemy, even if that enemy is bigger than you, then it's very hard to um, defeat that. And we need to start sending that message out. And then, of
Hmm.
course, the Trump administration will never do that because
But that's what
they are,
the House and the Senate is
well, and
about
they're
this
also
fall, because
compromised.
we are, yeah, we are, we're looking down the barrel of what could be an enormous wave of voters showing up. And even with the redistricting tricks that the Trump and his pals are trying to do, the reality is that they got a lot of Republican voters that are going to stand down because they feel betrayed by this administration. Obviously, on domestic issues, affordability, the kitchen table issues that they ran on, but also on this foreign wars concept and these wars of choice. And it seems, and rightly so, I think, to a lot of people that he took a page out of Putin's book and went, well, you can just do whatever you want, and if you can make yourself rich on the back of it, that's what being a powerful dictator type leader is all about. The lesson he learned from Russia was not that this is a failure, is that while this is going on, your friends and your kids can make a shit ton of money. And that's clearly part of what's keeping, the oligarchy in Russia afloat. And Trump's like, well, nice money if you can get it. There's a Chinese phrase that the guys on the China show have been using a lot lately, which is "neng pian jiu pian," which means if you can cheat, you should cheat, which is the mentality of a lot of the business and government people in China. But it's also very much, Trump's. I mean, it'll probably end up on his goddamn tombstone one day
Yeah,
as a
well,
monument.
remember the debate in
Okay.
'16 when he was just taking a scythe and decapitating all of his opponents,
Hmm.
and that was the point that he was making, was that, yeah, of course I paid off these politicians because I could.
Hmm.
So, why shouldn't I?
Jimmy said,
And
yeah, ask you about the European Security Pact initiative. If you think if there's any legs or any
yeah,
stuff around that. Yeah.
yeah, that is, and then I don't know who proposed it. I know it's been proposed in the past. There's a prominent politician, a European politician, Guy Verhofstadt, who has been actually advocating for something similar to this for quite some time. But I think this is the Balts and the Scandinavians,
Hmm.
primarily. So I don't know exactly who proposed this, but at the end of the day, ultimately, it's an idea of European security for Europeans. That
Hmm.
instead of falling under the umbrella of
Of
NATO,
NATO. Yeah.
that they would have their own independent security alliance.
Yeah. This
And
apparently
I've
these
heard this
this
before.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I've heard this before, and look, I'm a huge proponent of a transatlantic alliance. I
Mhm.
think NATO is one of the greatest security.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kept stability certainly in Europe, but I mean, I think even on a global stage for 70 years, and that's
Hmm.
when you look back at human history, that's pretty unusual.
Right.
And so I would not like to see a European security alliance that operates with complete disregard to NATO. I would like to see a European security alliance that is a, a member block within NATO.
Right.
Um, so that if there was an issue that the Europeans really wanted to, pursue, then, God bless,
Right.
and go for it. Uh, but I think we are stronger together, both, on both sides of the Atlantic. And I think we're stronger together with our alliance with, the Republic
Hmm.
of Korea or Japan. I think alliances are good things. I
Right.
think I think they're really smart ideas, and it's better to stand together, even if you have disagreements or squabbles or whatever. But it makes, I mean, like the whole idea of taking Greenland is
Hmm.
not only is it's plain stupid and it's not going to work and all the rest of it, but it brings up the question of, can I really trust my ally? And I think that's a greater damage than the actual proposal of taking Greenland itself. I think it is, alliances make it so that it's not in your interest to
Right.
attack other nations within your alliance. And that keeps the peace. And you can say all sorts of other things about military alliances and Western powers and colonialism, and how those alliances and powers are used. Um, you can make those arguments all day long, and they should be made. But more importantly than anything else, I think the idea of,
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense for me to attack you because I'm already in an alliance with you. We're in
Right.
lockstep.
Hmm.
So that keeps peace. And
Well.
one of the things about it, you and I have spoken about this in the past,
Hmm.
Hal, and I'll just wrap it up with this when we talk about, like, whether or not there is going to be a European Security Pact initiative, or what that would look like, or what a NATO
Hmm.
would look like, what different alliances. The most important thing is to avoid war.
Hmm.
And Americans, we have already we have been so lucky, um, that we have those oceans that we think
Hmm.
defend that protect us. They don't, by the way. In the 21st
Hmm.
century, they don't.
Right.
But that's a discussion for another day. I have said many, many times, and I will say it again, as somebody who has spent, has, you know,
Hmm.
not to, I'm not a martyr. I made a choice. I did
Hmm.
this of my own accord, but I've covered wars for 30 years. I've seen what wars do to people. I've seen what wars do to countries, communities, families. We do not want a war on American soil.
Hmm.
You do not want to experience war, as
Right.
somebody who's experienced war for 30 years. So,
Hmm.
if we are not drawn into a war, either a foreign war or a domestic, some sort of, everybody talks about civil war. I don't think civil war is even, a remote possibility. But
Right.
regardless,
Agreed.
let's just say, that we get involved in another war. It's why we see Generation Z saying "fuck you" to a Persian Gulf war,
Hmm.
which is doing massive damage for his support in that endeavor. So it's I wish Americans knew and understood war a little bit
Hmm.
better, and I know a lot of veterans do. guys that were sent over to Iraq and Afghanistan or wherever. But wars are absolutely horrific, damaging things that steal people's lives, even if we're not talking about bullets or bombs or deaths or pain and suffering and all the rest of it.
Right.
It steals your life. It steals your life. It you can't plan. You can't. Do you have a child? Do
Hmm.
you have a second child? Do you run away to safer pastures and become a refugee in a country that's not your own? Do you stay and fight? What happens to the family when people are grabbed off the street and put into basic training and then sent to the
Hmm.
front lines? As my friend and my colleague, is now facing in his imminent future. And again, he's got children.
Hmm.
And it rips up families, and it tears apart the fabric of society. And we want none of it. So if there are new alliances to be made, if there's a European alliance to be made, that will stave off the threat of war, then I'm all for it. I hope that we have not broken, and I don't think we have irrevocably broken the transatlantic alliance. I mean,
Right. I don't.
there's going to be an after action
Yeah.
assessment of the Trump administration, and I think the Europeans are going to see it, and all the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, as somebody has mentioned there in the text, war is not entertainment. It's not. It's not.
Hmm.
You know.
And it's not sports.
It's not sports. It's not. Yeah. It's not spy versus spy. It's not any of that. It's an insatiable beast that tears apart everything it touches, and
Hmm.
we don't want any part of it. We don't want to have foreign wars. We don't want to have a domestic war, and anything that can prevent war in any kind of way in alliances. I'm all for war is a horrible, terrible thing. It happens, and controversially,
Well, I mean, I
I
think.
almost think it's kind of like getting angry at a hurricane in some ways, because I think there's something hardwired into us.
Right.
Uh, but we don't have to be that way. So anyway, it's just you know I'm 5 years in. I just spent my afternoon talking about things that we're not going to include in the episode because they're frankly they're just too horrific. And then to have a friend and a colleague be ripped away from his family to go and fight for his country, which he's willing to
Hmm.
do. But it's going to destroy that. I mean, he's going to miss years of his, or at the very least months. I mean, God, if everything goes, if something miraculous happens and this war ends tomorrow, that's great. But more likely than not, he's going to miss huge chunks of his
Hmm.
young children's lives, and it's nothing that we should be engaged in as Americans. And we should also, when there is an aggressor who is trying to promote and create war, we should do everything in our power to shut that shit down. And unfortunately, regimes like Putin's or the DPRK or even Iran, and you can and hell, sadly, I guess now Trump, and we're, if not the aggressor, the you know the one
Hmm.
initiating this conflict in the Gulf. It's just we got to shut it down. We got to shut every effort.
Right.
I said I was going to shut up, but I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to say
It's
one
okay.
last thing, and then I
Sure.
really,
Sure.
really, really will answer questions, and you take over. You take the driver's seat
Okay.
after this. But
Hmm.
I years ago, and it's on my channel. and you can go and you can look at it. My father was a Korean War veteran, and I after a tour in Iraq, well, I had a pretty flush bank account, so I decided on the 50th anniversary of the signing of the armistice in Korea that I would take my Korean War veteran father back to Korea to see what the situation is, and how, what the country was and all the rest of it. Sadly, he had already succumbed to Alzheimer's, so he wasn't really fully aware. But I talked to another veteran of that conflict, the Korean War conflict, and he had to be in his 70s for
Mm-hmm.
sure, and you could tell that he had carried this war with him his entire life. And he I did it for Nightline. It's on my channel, the 50th anniversary of the signing of the armistice. I did it for Nightline, and the guys that I talked to just said, and this is so common amongst people who have actually been to war. It's like you got to do everything in your power to avoid wars.
Mm-hmm.
There nothing good comes from it.
Right.
It's just there's no benefit to it. So, to be playing loose and fast with the Straits of Hormuz, or you know, I had very complex feelings about the Iraq War,
Mm-hmm.
the Afghanistan War, um, but even with complexity of my thoughts about that and our commitment to those conflicts, if they could have been avoided peacefully, and obviously I think there was a way to avoid. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't want to get too complicated here, or controversial here, but at the end of the day, war is this monster. It's this thing that eats
Mm-hmm.
everything it touches, and it just everything it touches rots
Mm-hmm.
and is destroyed. And you know, you may go gallivanting around thinking, "Oh, I'm a big tough guy, and I've got bombers that can do this, and I've got tanks that can do that." But ultimately, nothing ever good, you know, comes from war. So, we got to shut this thing down. We got to
I
end this
agree.
war.
Here's what I will say to that is that while I agree to you, nothing good comes from it. There are a lot of people that make a lot of money off the bad and are more
Yeah,
than happy to bleed it on. And Donald Trump is clearly one of those people. His sons just signed a deal to sell drones to the Pentagon. This,
yeah,
their crypto is used as a currency for arms trading. That's its primary function. One of the Chinese dissidents who was an early investor in World Liberty Financial not only said, is it a grift, and that they're basically using it to steal from people or muscle people while they're in the White House, which, by the way, that's going to die faster than anything else, is the Trump brand and World Liberty Financial and all the stuff that they think they've got lined up after this. The idea that even the tough guys that they've given, power to, like Vladimir Putin and the others, are going to somehow support them after they leave office and they have nothing left to deliver or give is I mean, it's the thing most people who get into bed with the mob wake up to once they've outlived their usefulness. They end up with a face full of dirt. And this is something that that I don't see the Trump family. They're not Gabriel Byrne in fucking Miller's Crossing. There's nothing, there's no wisdom
yeah,
or conniving aspect of this. It's all blunt force bullshit. And they're going to get themselves killed. And their progenies and their other products and anybody who invested with them are going to, be on the receiving end of this. So even their short-term wins, where they benefit from all this stuff, is going to come to a screeching halt afterwards. Um, the
yeah,
you know Again, the idea that that Putin was legit in any of his peace deals that he was offering, when in reality, everybody knows, including after Euromaidan, that this was just cover for him to slip operatives into the country, undermine the government that was there, and especially in the Donbass, start killing people, disappearing people. No country that invades another country and steals 70,000 of their own children of the other country's children, is doing so because they're doing it for the benefit of those people. And so they have leverage against the people in the Donbass, that we've got your kid over the border, and unless you either join us in the fight or stand down in your support of your actual country, we're going to kill your kid. These children were abducted as hostages for war leverage. There is no other function. They are, and that in and of itself, the UN and everybody else has called it a war crime, which it clearly is. All the QAnon assholes who supposedly supported Trump because he was going to stop human trafficking, zip on that. None of them say a goddamn word about the abduction of little children, of toddlers, babies, and young kids taken by the Russians and handed out to the kind of Russian oligarchs and their buddies like Scott Ritter, who go over to Russia for like pedophilic sex tourism. It's grotesque, but you won't hear a peep out of those folks, because apparently Jeffrey Epstein's wingman is going to save us all from the cabal he helped. He was a fellow traveler in forever. It's absurd. I'm
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure. No, finish your thought. That's it. I'll make my point afterwards.
So the issue that they have is that there's a group of people that are just that are in too deep on their own ego and their belief in a system, which in many ways is some sort of fog of war. We'll call it a cult and all that kind of stuff. But there is an element of where these people were so panicked by the bullshit they were fed that big bad deep state, big bad immigrants, whatever they bought into, was way worse than Russia effectively planning to take over big chunks of Europe the way Germany did, and they just went about it the wrong way. They should have attacked the weak countries first and undermined the governments of Poland and other countries later, and done it over a 10-year plan as opposed to a 3-year plan. That's the only thing Russia learned from what Hitler did wrong. Everything else he did was right on the money. So I think, honest to God, even the racist aspect of Russian supremacy, I mean, the Ruska Mir thing, I struggle to find a difference between that and the German master race. There really isn't. And even the Ukrainian aspect of it is that we either have to find the real Russians that are in the Ukrainian world and teach them to stop speaking this mongrel language and get rid of their fake culture and come back to the fatherland, or kill them because they're not fully Russian. Get them out, right? They shouldn't be here, which is what happened to the Turks in fucking Crimea a long time ago, right? That's part of it too, is that there's just too much crisscross in that country. So the thing we're dealing with kind of in this sort of biphrenic world we are with the Middle East. And I would argue Russia plays a major hand in stirring up shit in the Middle East, and has for a long time, as a way to distract American presidents and drag us into shit. And that there's every bit as much of a signal from Russia, on them benefiting from one side or the other in this situation with Iran. That I just think they were too weak to stop it at this point, but they've been doing that for a long time. They've been running interference for Iran on a bunch of fronts, while undermining, the stability of the rest of the Middle East, including, look at the guns that are in the hands of Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas. They aren't AR-15s. They aren't M4s, right? They're not M16s even. They're AK-47s. That's not an accident. The
point. The point I was also going to make, and we'll talk about this on Saturday in greater length, I suspect, because it'll be the 9th. Yes, Saturday is the 9th. Yes,
where the pity parade happens, right? Yep.
uh, there's another aspect to it, and I've noticed this because I lived in Moscow for on and off, mostly, 5 years. And I saw 5 of these Victory Day parades that they're now cutting back on for, we'll talk about that on Saturday.
Hmm.
But the the point that's relevant to the discussion we're having now is that the 5 years that I spent in Russia, in Moscow, and the 5 years that I have spent here in Ukraine, um, which were both, part of the Soviet army. There a
Hmm.
huge 7 million, I believe, Ukrainians fought in the Soviet army. Some fought in the Wehrmacht, some fought for the Germans because they hated the Russians more than they hated the Germans. But anyhow, again,
Right.
discussion for another day. But I've what I have learned in the last 5 years here in Ukraine is that what happens on May 9th in Russian cities and in Moscow in particular because of Red Square is a celebration of victory, and it is a party. It
Hmm.
is a straight up party. It is we killed all those Germans and we beat them back and all the rest of it. And it's glorification of war,
Hmm.
and it's parades and flags and look at my big missiles and tanks and
Which is there's
artillery
a difference.
pieces.
Let me. That's an important distinction I want to make about the difference between traditionally American or Western parades
Yeah,
and Russian parades, because you don't see in Western parades, by and large, except because Trump wants them that way, new military equipment. You see soldiers who would serve and do serve alongside veterans, and you see flags and bands and that kind of stuff. But the idea that you're going to show off your wares like it's a fucking bazaar where you're selling these arms to the world is ridiculous in the West by and large.
yeah,
And that's because
and
that's
even
exactly what it is. This is a May 9th.
well,
Russia turned that into a bit of a sales pitch. They're selling that weaponry as well. And
yeah,
it's basically like, you might as well be watching a CES parade. You know what I mean? Like the Consumer Electronics Show. Like they're wheeling these missiles by to go, you can get one of those for, $16 million.
yeah.
Well, that's what that's about. It's not about honoring even their victories at that point. It's a fucking sales pitch. But right now, they're using so much of it, that it was like, um, what was the joke this weekend? You want to, I can't remember if it's like, what's the difference between, do you want to know what the difference between May 9th parades in the past and this May 9th is in Russia? And the answer is no tanks. Um, you know, right? That's because they're all being used. They don't even have shit to sell.
Well, and also, I mean, like even when we do have things like Navy Week or something like that, and
Yeah.
and the Blue Angels
Hmm.
fly over San Francisco Bay, or you're allowed onto an aircraft carrier to look at old, you know,
Yeah, but those, let's be honest, those are
the
recruitment.
Phantoms and things.
Those are recruitment moves.
Those are
That's why they fly.
recruitment things,
That's
but
why
but
they
they're also
fly
but
over
they're
sport things.
also
Yep. Yeah.
and that's why yeah, and I kind of have issue with a little bit of that, of the flyovers of the Super Bowl and all the rest of it.
Sure.
But
Me too.
it's not, it's,
Hmm.
it doesn't stick in my craw as much as what the Russians are doing. And the point I was making, when they do their Red Square May 9th, it's a celebration of them killing people.
Hmm.
They're celebrating killing Germans. Now, was that an awful regime that needed to be destroyed? Absolutely. But to celebrate killing people, which is what they do,
Right.
is very different than what I have learned here in Ukraine. So in Moscow, it's a party. It's literally a party. People
Right.
break out the booze. They get together as families. They tell the family story about the crazy great great grandfather who you know, did this or that, or the mother or the great grandmother who, you know, kept
Hmm.
people fed or hid from conflict or whatever. But they get together and it's a party. It's a celebration. And in Ukraine, who was very much involved in the Eastern Front and arguably was the larger part of the Eastern Front during World War II, they are mourned. People go to cemeteries and they lay flowers. They go to churches and they
Hmm.
light
Yep.
candles.
Right.
There are, back in the Soviet days, there were marches and parades and things like that here in Ukraine. But nowadays, in today's modern Ukraine, they do not celebrate May 9th as a victory. They mourn the people that died, and
Hmm.
it's a completely different. And you look, yes, we all societies and all countries do tend to, in some way, shape, or form, glorify war for their
Right.
own purposes, whether or not that's because they need people to join the military or whether or not they see it as part of their glorious martial history or whatever it is. But by and large, countries do tend to look back on conflicts, even ones they won. I mean, look at Saving Private Ryan.
Hmm.
Saving Private Ryan, takes into account that it was a righteous cause and that defeating Nazi Germany was the right thing to do, but it also shows that it rips lives apart,
Yeah.
and it is nothing to be celebrated.
Hmm.
You could argue it is glorified a bit with special effects, and you get the adrenaline pumping because, oh my gosh, they're running around in tanks and the guns and all that kind of macho bullshit. But even in movies like that, there is at some point a recognition that this sucks.
Yeah.
And the difference is on May 9th in Moscow is there's none of that. It's all about this was fucking great.
Hmm.
We kicked their ass,
Hmm.
and
Well, even
it's a
like
different mentality, and it carries
yeah.
on today. That it's part of the reason they do. It's part of the way they recruit for the war in Ukraine currently is
Hmm.
uh, hearkening to the legacy of the great,
Right. You're killing Nazis
patriotic
over
war.
there, right. Even though the president of the country's Jewish and he was elected properly in a democracy and blah, blah, blah. And he's the third democratically elected, the second one after Russia's guy got broomed. I would also like to point out that, one of the war areas that doesn't get covered a lot right now is what's happening in Sudan. And Russia's tentacles in the Sudan war, again, both sides firing Kalashnikovs, both sides firing AK-47. So they're supplying arms to both sides of this. These are Russian military vehicles, equally on both sides. But Russia specifically pushing for support of the RSF, the Rapid Support Force, which was originally called the Rapid Strike Force. But they, the Russians said, in English, just, bullshit people to make it look like you're trying to help. But in Sudan, just the humanitarian slaughter that's gone on there, and again, I brought this up as bad and as the Israeli strikes on Gaza have been, and as worthy they are of condemnation and conversation about this. The RSF killed the same number of people that died in Gaza in this entire conflict over a weekend in Sudan. In 4 days, from a Thursday to a Sunday, you could see the blood from space. It stained the ground so much. And this is the RSF specifically. Well, why does the Wagner Group support the RSF? Well, the RSF controls the mining areas of the country. They seized those first. And so that's where the gold and the minerals and the stuff for electronics comes from. And they literally truck it straight out to, Russia wants Port Sudan. That's one of the things that they're hoping when this all shakes out, they're gonna have a port down there where they can, I guess the new Crimean port, but this is ongoing. This is, and part of it is this is just a mineral war, old fashioned 12th century. We need those magic rocks that are under your feet. We need the Mayan gold. We need the gems, or we need the coal, or we need the fucking farmland because we fucked up ours. All that stuff. All those old fashioned reasons for war, which tons of people blame on religion. But if you boil down to it, it's really just about the stuff. That's exactly what's going on in Sudan right now. Nobody's paying attention to that in the same way that they're ignoring largely what Russia's doing in Ukraine. The Russians, by and large, are a vacuum cleaner of resources. They're just sucking up whatever they can for some dead end future, as in the world beyond oil, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, watch this week's episode of On the Edge. We'll get it out. Come hell or high water, we're losing a good man.
Mhm.
So help defend his country, and he has to say goodbye to his family, and that kind of it's a hamper on us trying to get the show out. But we'll get the show out, and I urge everybody to watch it, and I urge everybody to tell their friends to watch it. Because what's happening in occupied Ukraine. You mentioned Sudan, and you're absolutely right too. But I'm here, so this
Yep.
is my bailiwick. And when you learn what we talked about today about what is happening inside occupied Ukraine, what the Russian soldiers are doing, it, there should be an international outcry
Right.
that just shuts this war down completely. And also Moscow's not going to benefit from this war regardless anyhow. So it's just a matter of time before the war ends and Ukraine can look to a brighter future. But what's happening inside occupied Ukraine right now is just it is horrific, absolutely horrific. So
They're
look,
taking advantage of the distraction that Iran is. This is the
they
only
are.
way they can gain any
Before that Gaza,
benefit. Yep.
before that Gaza, and now what's happening in Hormuz. I don't think that's a coincidence actually, but regardless, that then we start going down conspiracy theory
Right.
and all the rest of it. But this war has to end. I swear to God, this war has to end. This war in
Yeah.
Ukraine is.
Yeah.
It is stoppable. It is entirely within our power, within the West, within the United States, to shut this down real quick. And if what we talk about on Sunday doesn't give you ample enough reason to get in touch with your elected officials and say, we need to be on the right side of history, and we need to stop this.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I mean
Yeah.
that's where we are.
Yep.
The May 9th thing, you and I will be speaking on the radio
Saturday.
on Saturday.
Yep.
So that's a discussion better left for then, because we'll also see what happens. Various truces have been offered. The Ukrainians offered their version of a truce. The Russians have, asked for a truce to mark the anniversary and all the rest of it, and we'll see how that all goes. But regardless, one way or the other, this just really has got to stop. This war has got to stop, and it's entirely possible that we can do it. They're in bad shape financially in Russia. The Ukrainians are really taking. They're getting the wind in their sails in a lot of ways with their long range cruise missiles and some of the other things that they're doing. But it just, even though it's going to be hard to do because the Russians haven't gotten to a place where they're sincerely ready to sit down in good faith and try and end this war, we can make that happen.
Hmm.
We can pressure the Russians a lot more than we have done, and we should. I mean, this just this has to stop. You know, obviously, what's happening in Iran, Gaza. You know, all it's just
Yeah.
this is
And again,
all
these
stoppable,
are
and the fact and
yeah,
the
yeah.
idea that we have changed, and it is just the point is worth making. So I'm going to more or less
Hmm.
leave you with this because
Hmm.
we're towards the end here. But
Yeah.
the idea of changing the Department of Defense to the Department of War to me is one of the most just nauseating
Hmm.
things that the administration has done, and that's saying a lot because they've done a lot of nauseating things. But we should not. It is the Department of Defense,
Hmm.
and that's the way it should be. I mean,
Agreed.
war is just there's that old there's the old comic, which I'm sure was in the New Yorker or some such thing, and from ages past, decades ago, with war at the table in a restaurant being served by all the waiters and the wait staff and all the rest of it, and then things like the sciences and the humanities and humanitarian aid, they have to sit there and look for table scraps.
Hmm.
War is insatiable until we decide that it isn't anymore. And
Or there's
so
quite frankly,
I
there
think
is
we
an
should.
appetite. There's an appetite for something else, and I think that's one of the things that Trump and his crowd are running up against. Because even in MAGA world, there is now an appetite for something else. There used to be, you didn't have that many choices in the world as far as what made your country visibly strong to the rest of the world. Now there are so many different ways through industry, the health, safety, and security of your own people, blah blah blah. And certainly your own companies and the power of your dollar and all those kind of things that you could show that are much more tangible to the average person than military victories for the sake of military victory. So it gets increasingly hard to wag the dog in that circumstance, anyways. And you're seeing a bunch of maggots who are responding to this, going, maybe we should have just followed up the Obama deal with a stronger version of that deal and without, starting this war that we will. There is no way you really you leave the current regime of Iran in place and not have them try, at the very least, to get a nuclear weapon, either from Pakistan or North Korea, or to build one themselves in secret. There is just no way, because they view that as their only way of being safe from the next attack like this. And if that's their choice, that's the one they're going to take because they wanted it in the first place. They just hit it and played along for other benefits. But if they see that they're basically a domino to be flicked by whoever gets a wild hair up their ass 5 years, 10 years, 12 years from now, the only way they can protect themselves is to pull a North Korea. They know this. And Donald Trump made it obvious to them by tearing up the last deal, not being able to make another one, and then attacking them twice with the entire stated purpose of they can't have a nuclear weapon, because if they had a nuclear weapon, nobody'd be able to stop them from doing anything they want. And they're like, well, yeah, that's exactly the point. It's what allows Russia to do this. Russia uses mutual assured destruction not as a deterrent, but as an umbrella under which it can attack anyone it wants, because if anybody tries to push back, they start threatening the world with nuclear annihilation. Don't you dare stop us from taking Chechnya, Georgia, Ukraine, chunks of Africa. If you try, we got nukes. We'll start talking about bombing Berlin, which is, or Paris or London, which is exactly what they've been doing. Now, I think it's largely impotent bullshit. And I don't think since post 1991, they know for a fact that if they fired their missiles, they wouldn't all just change direction, point at the Kremlin, and blow the fucking place up because of malware we put in after the fall of the Soviet Union. That would keep me up at night if I was a Russian leader. So, but ultimately, they also know that would be the end of everything else. Like they know it as well as anybody. The Iranians, do they know that? Maybe not. The Pakistanis, maybe not. Maybe the North Koreans don't know it. but they learn it really fucking quick.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the idea that, you know, they aren't going to try to have a nuclear weapon in secret because they think it's their only way of being safe, just tactically, strategically makes sense. You know, I mean, again, it's one of those, imagine if it was your country and the only thing that's keeping people from attacking us like this again is if we had a nuke. Everybody's going to want one. It's not even just about Iran. It's that this kind of behavior from our side, from the United States' side, and I would argue Israel's side, just reminds everybody else why they might want a nuke in the future.
We convinced the Ukrainians to give up theirs, and look
Right.
what happened.
Yeah, that's the argument in future as well, is that maybe Russia fears nukes being, you know, European nukes being placed on Russian territory, or I mean on Ukrainian territory, because that's one of the few ways you can protect. If you strike a country where we've got some of our stuff sitting, whether it's NATO or not, that's sort of an attack on our stuff, right? You're doing that, you're attacking us. So that, you know, we're setting up dominoes and daring them to flick them. It's a terrible situation to be, especially when there are a lot better ways to make a living and make a life on this planet than stealing it from somebody else. And again, this is you know, I know you say this all the time about Ukraine having, you know, being the birthplace of Russian history and one of the reasons why they can't destroy it. But, you know, I personally, as a person who doesn't believe in monarchy or holy lands, I don't think there are magic rocks or magic families. I think this whole fucking rock we live on is magic, and I think every family that's on it matters. And you know, and part of this shit that we're going through is only going to be solved when people let go of that idea that somehow this chunk of ground is more important than that chunk of ground just because I say so, or my 7 times rewritten version of God says so. And that's what we're ice skating uphill against. That's, you know, the people that believe that for real and the people who lie to them to manipulate them, whether it's the Russian Orthodox Church or fucking Netanyahu,
hide behind it just
or the
because
Iranians.
actually what they really want is you've got stuff that I want, and
Exactly.
I'll
It's all
use
fucking
it.
resource wars, and masquerading as you know, as yeah. And we've done this too. This is why we said no war for oil, and then Donald Trump comes in, gets elected, saying we should keep the oil. Jesus Christ, you know, a lot of us thought that ship had sailed. Apparently not. So, anyways, much love, brother. I will see you later. Take care, and I will see you on Saturday. Be safe. Yep,
All right.
absolutely. All right.
All
Cheers.
Right. Take care. All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right. There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, our dear friend Philip Ittner, live from Kyiv. There are a couple of questions that I feel like, hold on, I'll change my background to this guy. No, that's the World News Tonight. There you go. This one. Okay, so let me hide this one and this one. And this one. There you go. So oh yeah, so we have a sorry, whoops. We had a poll start in the thing, so it's taking a moment to catch up, I guess, as people answer it. And I mean, it's a good question for the folks in magotry to kind of answer that question, I guess. By the way, I want to thank the maggots that have been showing up lately. You guys are great. You've been giving me a thumbs down. You've been saying a lot of stuff in the chat. That helps me with the algorithm in a way you can't even comprehend. So it really does help spread the show. I know you're not going to subscribe, but more people will because they hear about from there. So I put up several options in there. It's funny how it puts the list up there. We've got a couple of one person. Let's see. There were, besides our lovely super chats, that were asking. Jim was saying how there's been a few YouTubers have gone to Ukraine and reported and came back. Do you want to go and maybe put on a show? Yes, I do. But currently, with my girlfriend going through chemo and being a father, the timing, especially around summer vacation coming up, is particularly difficult. But yes, that is on my dance card. I would hope that the war would end before that and go away. But uh, we had I think this might be a maggot in here who says Ukraine blows up Russian power plants, silence. Trump blows up Iranian power plants, people yell war crimes. Well, you see, dipshit, and I hope you're listening to that. Russia invaded Ukraine. So Ukraine firing back at Russia is a defensive act. Those power plants power the industry that is attacking them from a country that attacked them. Trump attacking Iran and Israel, along with us, attacking Iran and hitting their plants before they did anything are not defensive in measure at all, and they are war crimes because they are civilian in nature. So, and Iran doesn't. I mean, technically, I guess the attack on Karg Island wasn't seen as nobody yelled about that being a war crime because the theory is that Iran funds their military through the money that comes through Karg Island. They have other resources and they can use the oil themselves for their own populace. They've got enough for their own populace. So you're not really choking off the citizenry by doing that, just the industry of the country itself. So nice try. But again, the defending country firing on the attacking country, not a war crime. The attacking country firing on civilian parts of the defending country or the attacked country, whether they can defend or not is a real question, is the war crime part. See how that works? Yeah. So it's one of those things like where, technically speaking, if Palestinians in Gaza, if you fire on their power plants, that's a war crime. If they fire on Israel's power plants or the desalination plants, for example, that wouldn't be, because they would be retaliatory for being attacked and defensive in measure, because the theory is money you're spending on that to repair it, build it, keep it up and running is stuff you can't spend on the war effort. Thanos asked, how does Philip know how bad the financial system is in Russia? Yes, I believe he does. We've talked about that a couple of times on the weekend show. And by the way, I want to, Mark P, thank you for pointing out what I said. I just noticed your comment in there as well to Brian. So yeah, the retaliatory strikes are not the same kind of war crimes. In the same instance where like Russia firing on power plants in Odessa are war crimes. Period. Because Ukraine did not attack Russia. Russia decided out of whole cloth that it was their turn to kill a bunch of Ukrainians. And of course, steal resources. And largely that has to do with their shit demographic, their sort of collapsing economy, and their desperate need for I guess some way to make money. Okay, let's see here. Let me go to this. I'm going to end the poll and see what it was on here. See what the poll said ultimately. Where's my poll? There it is. This is something at the bottom of the thing. And then I've got to go to the other one. This guy right here. There we go. Go to this guy. And then we'll go to here. And then we'll end that poll and see where we were. The ultimate. No, thank you, Mark. Okay. So let's see. What one? Yeah, release the Epstein files won the what is Trump's biggest betrayal of maggots? The winning answer was release of the Epstein files, which I can't believe anybody thought he would actually do, considering that he was Jeffrey Epstein's fucking wingman for and this is on the vertical, interestingly enough. So this is a different slice of folks. On the regular horizontal one, I think where it's like we're running neck and neck on No New Wars in Epstein files. Isn't that adorable? Yeah, here we go. So the full release of the Epstein files won in both polls by a narrower margin in the horizontal live stream. No New Wars came in second at 41%. It was 43% full release of the Epstein files, and then of course grocery prices 9% and gas prices down by 50% is at 7%. All of them, I don't think anybody disagrees with the idea that they are all betrayals of his MAGA base. It's just a matter of how much. overall, though, the biggest winners are, and I hope the maggots kicked in. That they seem to have the maggots that did vote. I suppose it seems by and large they were struck by the Epstein files thing, which, by the way, still not doing. Also, Pam Bondi's not going to testify under oath about her redactions of the Epstein files and her and Kash Patel's assignment of FBI agents to black out Trump's name wherever it showed up in the 3 million files. They're still, they're still hiding. Which one did I pick? Mine isn't on there. My biggest choice isn't on there. I just picked those because I felt like the maggots that we had in the chat room, needed a reminder of some of their favorites. Yes, they will be like, yeah, Cenk and Anna are going to be all up in Hunter Biden's grill during the midterms this year. Mine's about we talked a little bit about this with Harry Dunn in the first hour. Mine's largely about immigration. Donald Trump promised, and boy is Nick Fuentes mad, promised 25 million deportations, millions, but train loads, bus loads, plane loads of people, just getting them the fucking rounding them up like cattle, herding them into box trucks and driving them across the border, right? That's what on day one, the biggest deportations in the history of the country. So, maggots, where are they? Well, why not? Why haven't they happened? Why is he busy yanking 4-year-olds out of their mom's arms and raiding fucking, chicken processing plants and farm workers? And then, by the way, following up the farm raids in Nebraska and other places with, you know what? We're not going to do any more of that. We're not going to raid farms anymore. We're going to do an honor system with the farmers, and they can just, anybody they vouch for can work here without papers for free forever. You're cool with that? Sorry, you're bitching about Democrats wanting an E-Verify workers, like migrant worker visa being introduced so people could come over, work, and go home, right? You think that's a bridge too far. This motherfucker wants them to be like tacit American citizens living under the table in perpetuity throughout until time stops. You're good with that. Just honor system, big agribusinesses, just hire as many undocumented people. Don't even tell us about it. We trust you. Have them live on property or buy a hotel nearby in the, or an apartment building. Just have them all live there. Don't. If something goes wrong, we'll give you a ticket or something. We'll fine you if they. Well, but hey, we trust you. And if you, by the way, if you have a hotel and a golf course, same thing applies to your landscaping folks and the people who work in hospitality or your janitorial crews. Those can all be undocumented as well. If you own a hotel and you're a friend of Donald Trump's, those folks, we're on, you vouch for them. We're good. MAGA's like, yay. Yes, exactly. We're only going after the bad guys, the 25 million psychopaths that allegedly came into the country. Okay, where are they? Where are these people? 25 million. That's a lot of fucking people. Even a country of 340 million people, they're going to show up. They're going to take up apartments. They're going to live together. They're going to be somewhere. Where are they? Why can't Trump find them? Why can he only find kids getting cancer treatment and women working in as sous chefs and nannies and gardeners? All the places these racist dickheads all think those kind of workers work that, wouldn't hurt Trump. But there's a 3-man roofing team. Remember these guys? 3-man roofing team, and they were chasing these assholes across a roof, trying to get them to come down so they could deport them. Why? Because they were criminal aliens? No. Just because they were roofing at a reasonable rate. And then at the same time, maggots, explain yourselves. At the same time, he says, I've got a trust me bro policy with hotel owners and big agribusiness for any workers they want to have. Feh. The same time, on behalf of Elon Musk and these other guys, jacks up the available H-1B visas and then starts selling the Trump Gold Visa card. Remember that nonsense? Which, by the way, he said they've got hundreds of thousands of people that are lined up to do it. We're going to make so much money off of this fee to become a wealthy business owner in America here on a visa with no loyalty whatsoever. 19 people have signed up for it. Only one has completed the fucking application. And it was like it was a Russian, like in Russia, like it was like one of Putin's folks. And you're cool with that. You're going to round up kids with cancer. You're going to round up workers that are working at a below minimum wage, which is already at a fucking floor. Unless they work at his hotel. In which case, mind your fucking business. Get off my property. So that one, I didn't even include that one. Because that's my bugaboo. But I do think he promised that, and I know why he promised this one in particular. 50% drop in oil prices. Remember that? Why did he say that? Well, because there's an oil glut. There has been an oil glut. As a matter of fact, to stop the oil glut, one of the few things they could do was gack up the Strait of Hormuz to keep the price of oil up, which is a great favor to the Saudis. It's a great favor because it's not like oil fucking spoils. It helps Russia, especially if you drop the sanctions, because we got to get that oil out there. And in a glut, the price is just going to keep going down over time, over the next 5-10 years. We've already hit peak. It's going to continue to cascade down. There's too much oil in circulation. So what do? Start some bullshit in the Middle East, gack up the biggest throughway for 20% of the world's oil, guarantee yourself a rise in oil prices that you know is going to happen and you can invest in ahead of time. You can manipulate the markets multiple times. Your buddies in those oil producing countries can do the exact same fucking thing. UAE dropped out of OPEC and everybody's seeing them as a hero because they're no longer going to, do what largely the Saudis tell them to do in terms of output. Well, when did they do it? When oil was spiked at, over $100 a barrel. So, but the reason he was claiming there was going to be a 50% drop is because that's where we're headed. Maybe not this year now. Probably not the year after that, but pretty goddamn soon because the world is moving on from oil. You need it for jet fuel, you need it for other stuff, but you do not need it for commuter cars in the greater West where most of the cars exist. China's entire market, they're trying to electrify for a bunch of different reasons, but not the least of which is that they import 80% of their fuel. They have to. They have to electrify their cars. Or their entire economy will seize up, and it's already in deep shit. So that's why he made that promise. He thought it was going to come true magically, not because of anything he had to do. And right now, he and his buddies are just shaving off the last big chunks of money off of this particular market on the backs of all consumers. Because this is a tax on us. By the way, if oil prices and gas prices go down between now and the midterms because he releases stuff from the fucking reserves or he does any kind of manipulation to chip away. See, I told you it would go down really fast. You still burned all the money during this. That money's fucking gone. You set fire to it, and it didn't have to happen. Yeah, I've always said that solar energy and electric cars would really fuck up the plot of Mad Max. The No New Wars thing was always garbage. This is the guy who ran on getting us out of Afghanistan and then shits on Biden for actually doing it. Trump chickened out again because everybody around him told him, it's going to suck. No matter what happens, getting out of there is going to suck. It's going to be bad for your poll numbers. It's going to be dangerous. All the Warhawk people that support you are going to, they're going to freak out. So you probably should, just punt it till next time. And then in the middle of that go, well, we're leaving, but we're going to keep Bagram. That's what he meant by leaving with dignity and grace, right?
Bring a taco! Trump always chickens out, so it's gonna be alright.
Okay, so and then grocery prices. He's spent more time marveling about the word grocery because he's never actually bought anything of his own at a store in his fucking life. So he has no idea what groceries mean. Even his wives don't buy groceries. That's the life they live. His kids' wives don't buy groceries. His sons don't certainly buy groceries. That's woman stuff. She has no idea how much stuff costs. This is just like H.W. Bush when he went to a grocery just to make an appearance and was like, I had no idea they had these laser things to scan the prices. And then, no new wars, and then, the gas prices down. And then, full release. So we covered all of them. There you go. So, Biden got us out of Afghanistan. We're not in Afghanistan because Biden got us out. Trump ran on it, didn't do it. And the idea that, he was going to. This is like the story at the end of his first term. He's like, Iran was this close to making a deal. They were this close. Dude, they're so close. And then, I lost the election and I was like, it was 2 weeks away, but there was 10 weeks between me and leaving office. And I had 2 weeks I could have, we totally could have, but I was like, I'm not really interested. Fuck them. I hate America now. Let them get a nuclear weapon. I'd tear up the deal and not be able to replace it with something, not even have something ready to go in its stead at all. Let's tear it up and then start talking about what we might want. We have concepts of a deal. And we call him Mr. Taco. That's right. Whoops, hold on. That's it.
Raise a taco!
Right. So that was buzzy and weird in my ears. All right, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you guys for joining me. To the maggots that do show up occasionally, try harder. I know you're used to being in other chat rooms where people get upset and all your little jabs, and you're like, nuh-uh. Like I'm sure in other chat rooms, like on Rumble or some dipshit place you hang out, it really hurts the person who's broadcasting, it does. It just doesn't work here. It's not going to. It's never going to. But I appreciate you trying. Just try a little harder. And I know it gets harder for you every day because every day Trump betrays even more of what he sold you. And I got news for you. He was always going to do it. Like, the annoying part of listening to me is that I have to tell you that none of us fucking bought it, dummy. None of us are being betrayed by our president because we knew he was going to do this dipshittery from day one. So why, and again, if we know that about him, why would his blind Epstein sucking, supporters bother us at all? Like, why should we take them seriously? For real. If him being friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 27 goddamn years, him only having two friends in the whole goddamn world that were his best friends, Roy Cohn and Jeffrey Epstein, both of them dead pedophiles, allegedly dead. I mean, obviously, we all know he helped Jeffrey Epstein escape from prison. And that's I was early on that one. But that's apparently the one making the rounds these days. But I didn't make you guys believe he meant it when he said no new wars. Of course I voted for Kamala. I'm a Democrat. And I give a shit. Even about the constituents in my country that aren't on my side. I don't want you guys to lose your last chance at health insurance. I don't want your fucking public schools to collapse. I don't want all the funding to go out the door and like Trump's crypto fucking schemes. Of course I did. What are you, stupid? Good God, man. You voted for a dude who didn't even write Art of the Deal. So yes, of course. And so again, if you believe all of his stuff still, I don't know why I would listen to a crazy person. Why would I be upset that a psychotic is yelling something at me? I would go, oh, it's a pitiable psychotic, right? What other response am I supposed to have? I mean, you did see how he handled COVID last time. Who started Operation Warp Speed? Sorry, Operation Fart Steed is what we call it around here, because obviously
Captain's log.
But you know, all that money to the pharmaceutical companies. Who signed that bill? Meanwhile, like maggots somehow, I don't know. Is this possible? Do you guys still believe he signed the VA Choice Act? Do you really believe that when he said he signed the VA Choice and Accountability Act and he was the first person to do it and everybody wanted to do it for 50 years? Remember that? Do you actually believe he's the one that signed that into law? He said it over and over and over again. And if he's lying about it, he's lying about the help he gave to veterans. He didn't do it. Somebody else did. You can go look it up if you want. The VA Choice and Accountability Act of 2014. Who was president in 2014? But you guys still believe Trump signed that into law. He told you, so it must be true. So again, if you believe that, if you believe Donald Trump hiding behind the hems of veterans, while, by the way, cutting the veterans budget in the big bullshit bill, and saying we can't afford daycare in our country because we got to pay for wars, which he was never going to have. Like, yeah, you should see you kind of waking up to that stuff lately, but you actually believe he signed the VA Choice Act. You really do. Because he said so? And if you still believe that, even though it's the VA Choice Act of 2014, and go look at it. It does all the things Trump said he was the first one to do. It was actually a Kentucky Republican congressman who put it into the legislative calendar, drafted the original one. It was a bipartisan bill across the board. It wasn't like everybody was trying to do it for a long time. They just did it. Right? The VA Choice Act of 2014. Go look at it. Everything that's in there that Trump says, we got this and this and this, and nobody else had ever gotten it, was signed into law 3 years before he took office. And if you still believe that, why the fuck should anybody listen to you about anything else? I'm dead serious. Why? And don't you owe Barack Obama an apology for lying about him? For lying about how he treated veterans and giving one of his successes in that benefited veterans to a draft dodger, a second-generation rich kid born with a fucking golden plated spoon up his ass? You talk about stolen fucking valor. You maggots gave Trump credit for a bill that Obama signed into law that benefited veterans. And you're cool with that. You're okay with that. You don't have to believe me. Go look it up. Unless you're scared. And I understand why you're scared, because then you face ego collapse. That's what the weak-willed do. Go look it up. Go look who signed it into law. Yeah. Yeah, Russ Vought, they call him Darth Vader for a reason. He cut VA spending. And maggots will continue to support him while he does it. Yeah, I know it's overtime. I understand. I got to go too. All right, I'll see you guys this afternoon. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. But I had to address that because we've got a few of these folks showing up occasionally, and I just want to remind them that I've admitted being either misspeaking or being wrong about things in the past. I'm a grown up. Maybe it's time for them, if they really give a shit about this country, to try that too. Well, it's a kooky idea, I guess, but I mean, he can't, I guess the question is MAGA so weak that they have to pretend that Trump had wins they know he didn't have, just to, not to protect him, but to protect their own egos? Hold on, let's try the, I like this one better. Yeah. It's not Scottish, it's crap. Also, TDS, obviously, Trump derangement syndrome, is what you have to vote for a pedophile's wingman. Donald Trump and Epstein were thick as thieves. You'd have to be deranged to vote for a guy like that. You can't find another Republican anywhere that agrees with you on shit that wasn't Jeffrey Epstein's wingman. It was that bad. It's that hard to find a non-pedophile Republican. It's that hard. Hell yeah, that's amazing. Sucks to be you, I guess. Hold on, I'm gutting. All right. Peace. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. Bye 1960 demo. Bye you guys. Thanks so much. Hit that like, share the show. Unless you're a maggot report switch, give me a thumbs down and, I don't know, report me. You bunch of snitches.